Hello and welcome to The Society with Barrister Fatma Shaheen at PTV World. Article 7 of the United Nations Child Right Convention very clearly says that it is the fundamental right of every child to be cared and to be looked after by their parent. Now, every time a parent just doesn't do that, this right is violated. What a lot of people do not also know is the fact that child abandonment per se is now also a crime under Pakistani law. What are the causes? What are the consequences of the same? This is exactly what we'll be talking about in our today's show. We'll also be discussing the status of orphans as it has evolved in the Pakistani society, and we'll also most importantly be shedding light on the fact that what all has the Pakistani state, what all has the Pakistani civil society done when it comes to improving the child rights situation in the country, especially when it comes to, basically tackling the social menace of child beggary and when it comes to reunification of families. This and much more to follow on today's show, and to do that, let me introduce you to my today's panel. My first panelist for the show today is Ms. Salma Turab, who's a child rights activist. Assalamu alaikum, Salma, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Alongside her, I have Ms. Almas Butt, who is the director of SOS Children's Village, Lahore. Assalamu alaikum, madam, and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And via Zoom is Ms. Sara Ahmed, who is the chairperson of Child Welfare Protection Bureau, Punjab, alongside being the special coordinator to CM Punjab on child protection. Assalamu alaikum, Ms. Sara, and welcome to the show.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you.
Well, to get the conversation started with you, Salma, I think it's very important for us to get the definitions clear first. There is this report by the UNICEF which very clearly defines an orphan to be, and I quote, as a child who has lost one or both of his parents. Now, when we look at different jurisdictions of developed countries, be it US, be it Australia, I would want to particularly refer to in this regard, because Australia says that even if both the parents are living, but for any reason they are incapacitated or they are unable to look after the child, then the child will be considered to be an orphan. So considering that we have so many different definitions of orphans from so many different jurisdictions, how do you compare this definition to what is here in Pakistan?
An orphan is considered someone who's lost either both set of parents or doesn't have a father, has one set of parent. Even in Pakistan, we have the same philosophy being applied in orphanages. So there are lots of kids who've been placed into orphanages who have either the mother alive only, they don't have the father alive, and she's earning for the child and unable to take care of the child on a full-term basis. The family doesn't want to keep the child. So they've been placed into orphanages as they can't maintain their lifestyle and giving them a proper, like a proper life with education and home and proper requirements.
Right, I think that's very rightly put. But on that note, I would like to come to you, madam. I think it's very important for us to understand the fact that regardless to what definition any orphan is given in any jurisdiction, because we do see that the definitions tend to vary. One thing that is constant is the fact that we need to be kind, we need to be, all-inclusive, we need to be accepting of them at the end of the day. So when we talk about children who are abandoned, or for that matter, orphans, what is the criteria of your organization of taking such children in?
Children who have lost both parents, or they've lost father, but the mother is alive, but she has remarried and is unable to keep the child with her because the husband would not allow it.
Okay.
So we take those children, we think they are most deserving because they know that they are being rejected.
Right. And madam, what happens if, for example, the mother has, predeceased the father, basically that way, like if they are single dads, they are out there too. So do you take in such children as well if they don't want to live for the father for any reason?
No, we don't want to facilitate the father that he leaves the child with us and remarries. No. But if he is suffering from some illness, cancer or something like that, then we would like
for any reason he can't look after them, basically.
Yes.
So is there some age?
Yes.
Yeah. Is there some age limit set on which, because I do know countries like Serbia, they don't even give in their children if the child is below 3 years of age. So is there some age limit set with your orphanage?
No, we take infants also. I mean, people bring us infants lying on the streets, in mosques, left on shrines. So of course we take them. And from 0 to 8 years old. But let's say if there is a family of 4 or 5 children and the eldest is is a girl and is 9 or 10, we would take them because we keep the family together.
Right, madam, your point is noted. But coming to you, Sara, I think it's very important for us to also compare and contrast the kind of work that your bureau is doing as compared to the, you know, SOS orphanage. So what is your criteria of admission when it comes to taking in orphans?
Child Protection and Welfare Bureau accepts all kinds of children who, whether they are orphans, whether they are disturbed, mentally challenged children, okay,
Right.
and also missing children, abandoned children who are thrown out of their by their parents, who are on the streets, child beggars, abuse victims, torture victims. We do not discriminate when it comes to children. We accept all kinds of children because we think that it's the state's responsibility, it is our responsibility to cater to all of them. So that's our criteria. There's no criteria actually. So it's all children below the age of 18, right? And so we have different sections operating. Right now, we have around 1,100 children living with us in 8 districts of Punjab. In Lahore being the biggest center, we have 500 children living, girls and boys. And we educate them, we rehabilitate them, we provide them psychological counseling, we reunify them with their parents. This is just about missing children that I'm telling you. Also, we provide them vocational training. We're providing different courses so that they can lead a normal life. They don't have to beg later on. They don't go on the streets again. And we have some really nice success stories also of our children working at good places and companies, at designers right now.
But I just want to know that, you know, one thing which I would want to ask Madam Almas too, you say that your system, the way the Bureau is looking after children is inclusive. So do you also take in, you know, differently able children for that matter?
Actually, differently able children don't come under our ambit as per the PDNC Act. But if there's an exceptional case, if there's a child who nobody is accepting, like SOS doesn't take, problematic children who are disturbed, we keep them.
Right, Sara. I think in this regard, she's made a very valid point, madam, that, you know, they do cater to differently abled persons, which you people don't, especially if they fall within the ambit of the legal provisions.
Yes,
that
because
way.
you see, we have a clear-cut policy and we have to follow it. It's an international organization.
Right.
We have our constitution coming from Austria, so we have to follow it. So we have to follow this policy. We only take orphans and abandoned children.
And how would you define abandoned children that way? Because from what I see, madam, there are those who've been willfully abandoned, there are those who are neglectfully abandoned, there are those who are secretly abandoned.
Means left at different places. Let's say shrines, parks, mosques, and of course we try to unite the family thinking that it's a lost child, but when we see that the child has been abandoned deliberately, then of course we take them.
Right.
Yes.
And I think you have been working with a lot of orphanages this way. When we talk about child rights, primarily when I see it, you know, as a lawyer, for that matter, as a human rights activist, I think the underlying issue is that one way or the other, the child is abandoned because of which they are subjected to, you know, maybe child kidnapping, child abuse, or any other crime, you know, which is related to children. So from your narrative of a child rights activist, what do you feel are the most pressing reasons for child abandonment in Pakistan?
Look, Fatma, obviously the main causes would be, you know, economically you're able to sustain the child's life in the proper way. Okay, so if, for example, both the parents have passed away, the family, the distant family, doesn't want to take on the responsibility, so they end up abusing the child. They end up making them, you know, for a couple of months in the beginning after the death of both the parents, they end up making them do a lot of torturous housework as well. Burning. I've seen kids who've been burnt, who've been abused, and this is like 3-4-year-old girls and boys who've been tormented by the distant relatives and everything. So it's just really painful. They take it for a certain number of days, and after that they dump the kid on the street. So, you know, they naturally, it's all about finances. So
I think not just about finances, and I would want to take Sara's narrative on this too, because she also you know, comes across so many children every day. I think it's so many other social reasons as well, like for example earlier when we were talking about differently abled children.
Of course, for
there are
differently able
social
children,
reasons people don't want to keep such children, unfortunately, which is very
Which is a
sad.
very sad thing,
It's very
but
sad.
But those children are abandoned at an early age. They are infants.
those are newborns who
Newborns.
But madam, at the end of the day, they are still
they're
abandoned.
still abandoned.
They are
yes, no
abandoned.
doubt.
Sarah, would you want to add something to this?
It's actually very challenging to deal with the children who are subjected to trauma, abuse victims, abandoned children, because they are going through a difficult phase in their life. They're mentally disturbed, They do weird things also, and that's the reason why psychological counseling and rehabilitation is provided to them to bring them back to life.
Right.
I myself interacted with abuse victims and abandoned children, and they miss their families. They don't have a family. That's why they're abandoned.
Right, Sarah, and I think it's very good that at the end of the day you help people. But coming to you, I think Salma, since you've also, had the benefit of studying psychology, I think this question would be very relevant to you. When we talk about children who are destitute, who are neglected, who are abandoned, who are orphans, that way we do see that, this inevitably does leave a very adverse effect on their mental health, and they are psychologically affected. So what are the most glaring issues that you see in children, who have been abandoned in any way in their lives?
Look, Fatma, these kids are all kids who've suffered a lot of trauma from the loss that they've faced. So naturally, it ends up leading them as they're growing up, as they become grown-up individuals. They'll have a lot of problems socially, psychologically, which would lead to depression, loneliness. They'll be having problems depending on people because they've never had that close bond with the mother or the father or the family member who gives them the proper
And they
emotional
drop out
value.
of school very easily too.
Because
Exactly. They're not
consistent.
studying.
They're not consistent in the things that they have because they haven't seen that consistent life at home, or because they're living in a shelter home, in an orphanage. So that place is taking care of many kids at the same time. So what the trauma that is inside their hearts, it carries on in the life, and it creates a lot of depression later on. So like, Sarah's also mentioning that psychologically they need proper therapy, like being injected on a regular basis.
Coming to you, madam, and I think in this regard it's very important to actually highlight the fact that when we talk about psychological counseling, when we talk about therapy, it's just not therapy which is limited to the child themselves. It is therapy which actually encompasses the entire family.
Yes.
Of course. You see, our system is a very unique child care system. We build relationships, we build bonds, and we have small independent homes, and there are 8 to 10 children or 7 to 8 children, and there is a mother. Mother plays the pivotal role in their lives. She creates a very harmonious, very nurturing environment for the children. She sees to it that they develop to their full potential. She spends time with them. She's there 24 hours of the day. She sits with them, chats with them, plays with them. They have a very special bond with the mother, the children.
But what happens, madam, if the mother for some reason has been abused too? So you would need to counsel the mother
Counsel
too
the
that
mother,
way.
yeah,
I
You
guess.
see, we have psychologists.
You
the
have
caretakers
psychologists.
need
And
to-
one
we
thing,
give
one
her
more thing.
full support.
Right.
We give her, everyone needs a shoulder to cry on. We are there for her. And when she gives love to the children, you see, you give love to the child and you get it back with interest.
Of course.
And when the children are hugging her, taking care of her, she's sitting, the elder girl is making tea for her. This makes up for so much in their lives.
And I think in this regard, it's important to highlight, on which I would want to take Sarah's narrative too. Sarah, because I do know that the Bureau is also very focused on, looking after the psychological and emotional well-being of the children. But in that regard, do you guys go a step ahead and also look into the fact that, you're building up their personalities, you're making sure that they have the right interpersonal skills, the communication skills? Because at the end of the day, I would want to believe that the Bureau would want to, have children who are responsible citizens of Pakistan once they leave the Bureau.
As you already know that, other than food and shelter, we're providing them education, vocational training and stuff like that also. But for example, we started nursing classes. We're training women to be nurses. There's a professional nurse who comes daily and she gives classes to our girls who are living there. Similarly, we have different courses being offered to the boys also, to the girls also. Recently, I've started self-defense classes because you must have heard of the recent women protection issues happening in our
that's very
society.
important.
And I think it's very important for males and females both to know how to defend themselves. So we've started those classes. Other than that, grooming, yeah. So people from the media industry, celebrities, everybody, civil society have started coming to the Bureau and some of them come regularly, and they're teaching grooming classes to our girls and boys, teaching basic manners.
And I think
We have
that's a very
school
good thing,
buses.
Sarah, because when this is coming from people, who are celebrities, people who generally are looked up to, I think it will have a greater impact. So I think that is something which we
Very
must give
good,
them
very
credit
Because
for.
they're giving them like
this
a
is commendable.
regular-
Yeah.
Sarah, this is commendable if you are doing this, and it's a
Excellent.
very good initiative
I
that
wish
you've
this
taken.
would also be implemented in other smaller orphanages as well. The
Yes.
same initiative you've taken in your bigger platform, the smaller orphanages also need to have this opportunity given to them as well.
In this regard, I would also want to add, you have told us generally about the work that you've been doing, which is of course just not specifically focused on, ensuring that the children have the right kind of a psychological, upbringing. I was reading this very interesting statement by this head of orphanage in Mexico, which actually says that there is no such thing as a good orphanage. Nothing can ever replace a family. As somebody who's heading, the Child Welfare Protection Bureau in Punjab, do you agree with this?
To a great extent, I do agree with it, because the love that a child gets from his or her own family, that's unmatchable. Of course, whether it's one mother looking after 10 children, or it's one, warden, like we have supervisors, wardens, we have child attendants. It's not the same as the love that we give to our children in our houses. No matter how how amazing food you're giving, what quality of life, there still is a difference, and they do feel it. So we try our maximum to minimize that difference that they feel, but that the feeling is still there. It's not the same.
Your point is noted, Sarah. But coming to you, madam, I think Sarah has made a very valid point that no matter how hard you try, of course, even in orphanage, you do have your own set of limitations, and you can't give the children, even if you want to, the environment that, of course, their original biological family would be able to give. But I personally feel, this is my, opinion, you may beg to differ this way, that there is still that strata of children who are abused by their, parents, who are not accepted for any reasons, and there are few who also run away and who actually go to organization like yours, to bureau like Sarah's. So if we see this argument in its entirety, would you agree with what is being said here? Like, I would partially agree and partially disagree.
Partially agree, yes.
Yes.
You see, but in our setup, the mother is there, the older brothers and sisters are there. It's a very close place, close community, and they share things, they care for each other. The mother keeps telling the older sister, look at your brother, what is he doing? Please dress her up. This girl is going to school. This child keeps hearing these things, and this affects, makes them,
Makes a difference.
yes, it makes a
Which
big
makes them
part of
come
a-
to basically
Yes.
people
And-
like you and
Yes,
Sarah, which is
yes,
why I'm
because
saying
it
that
becomes a-
you
it
just
becomes a
can't
part of a
actually
home.
do away with
It's
this
a
need
very-
of orphanages completely in the society,
We
madam.
build families
Yes.
for the children.
You give
in
them a
need.
family home environment, which is what's missing in
What
their
is
lives.
missing
What
in
is
their
missing.
You
lives.
inject
Otherwise,
that in.
right.
Yes.
Every orphanage would get food, shelter. Yes, it is there. But it is the love, care, special care.
Of family.
Of course.
The child is leaving for school, will hug the mother and then go to school, comes back, keeps
It's
running
that
to the home
basically
because knows
emotion.
that the mother is
Right.
waiting for.
Right.
Amma, I'm home. The mother would take the bag, hug her. How did you spend your day in the school? So this is normal life for the child.
Coming to you, Sarah, I think it's very important to have your narrative on this as well. I do understand that the Bureau also hands over the temporary custody of children. So just tell us, what is the whole procedure? How do you ensure that the parents or the families that you're handing over the temporary custody to, they're actually eligible for it?
Firstly, in just talking about Punjab, Child Protection Bureau is the only department who's entitled to give babies in temporary custody. It's done through our own court, which is the Child Protection Court. We have a sessions judge sitting there, and our process is very simple. Our criteria is just people who we think where the child will prosper, where the child, for the for the child's well-being, whichever family is suitable, we give our infants to those families. We have a long list of applicants, and of course it does take time, because once we get infants, only then we can give infants to the families. But there are lots and lots of couples who are there to adopt, and it's not just income. I personally have given infants to middle class families, as well as people living in Pakistan, Singapore, Dubai, US, UK, everywhere. So what we check is, we also check their family status, their relatives, their social circle, their house, if they can afford to raise the child properly, and stuff like that. So they have to submit their documents. The judge, a team goes and checks their house and stuff, and then the child is given to the couple through the child protection court. And then after that also we have follow-ups.
Right, Sarah. And having said that, how do you follow up just to make sure that, you know, once the child has been passed on to another family, they are being well looked after? Because at the end of the day, it is a very important responsibility, which I'm sure the Bureau is properly fulfilling.
There are two ways. One is that the court calls the couple with the child after every 2 months to check how the child is doing, to, you know, interview the child personally and everything. The other option is if the couple or the family can't come, then our team goes, our socio-economic team goes and checks on the child and the family.
Sarah, I think a very important thing which we must also, you know, get your views on is the fact that I remember that some time back the Punjab government, and you were very active in actually proposing rules in which it was proposed that, you know, all the private NGOs and orphanages which did look after children, they must be registered with the Bureau. So why do you feel the need to have such rules? Like what would be the intent, or what would be the good behind having such rules?
Basically, lots of people contacted me personally also, and the Bureau also, and we were told, we were given proofs also of child abuse cases, you know, taking place inside orphanages, inside organizations who had given residential facilities to children, and even good, you know, good orphanages, I mean, good ones and bigger ones. So the thing is, we wanted a system, I wanted a foolproof system wherein the Bureau could intervene, you know, and have a legal, having that under the Child Protection Bureau, like it happens in the West also, that all orphanages are and organizations are they register with a government organization. So with the help of the Chief Minister, Law Minister, and the Home Department, we got these rules passed, which were pending since many months, because I thought this is very important. So after this, of course, we also did surprise visits of some orphanages, and we found out some issues over there, some loopholes, the children were not being looked after properly, so stuff like that.
And I think it's a great move on your part, Sarah. I think it's a great move, because like you said, in Western jurisdictions we do see this, and there needs to be some, exactly, there needs to be some check, there needs to be some accountability to at least ensure that, you know, the children, they are just not left as it is. People who are actually
they should not be left on the mercy of the organization.
I think that's a very
have their own interest
right,
as well,
exactly. I think accountability should be something which should be across the board.
Evaluation, that should be done.
That should be done.
And madam, in this regard, I think one very important initiative which we must talk about, which your organization particularly is very focused on, is family strengthening. Now that is something personally which I find very interesting, because, you know, I was reading up on this when I was actually preparing for this show, that you let mothers work and you keep the child for them till the time they work, then they come and they visit them on the weekend. So it's quite an interesting kind of a concept where you're letting the woman empower herself, where you're letting her, you know, earn the bread for the family, but at the same time you're letting her maintain that bond with her children.
Yes. You see, there are so many orphanages in the country now. In every street you would find an orphanage. Now the need of the hour is to take care of the children of single working mothers. You would see
or
3,
even
4 children,
divorcees, or those women who are widowed,
Yes,
madam.
widowed, and they're unable to take care and give a good living
widows we would
condition.
take, the single working mother, she would be working in some house as a housemaid. They, you know, work in 3, 4 houses, and their children are playing on the streets, outside, because people would not let them in. So I mean, children for whom she is working, they are sitting on the street. not studying, in shabby
They're growing
clothes.
up in the worst environments.
Yes,
Yes.
and not safe on the street. So we have, our president, Mrs. Suraya Anwar, was very, this was very close to her heart. We must take care of these children of single mothers, single working women. So we've set up these three, at the moment, 3 projects. One in Multan, Lahore. Lahore mein we have 2, and where we are taking the children of single working women. We have a school for them, we have a boarding house for them, and they are properly looked after. They go to school and everything, and then the mother can visit them, take them home on the weekends, because you see, she is looking after someone, maybe her old ailing
No,
mother.
I really appreciate
Old-
this concept.
old
I think
ailing
it's
mother.
really
Just
good.
say this over
Yes.
here as well, that what SO has done is a fabulous thing, because they've created a separate home for these
the-
kids who have mothers
And-
around and who are working,
yes.
whereas the other smaller orphanages are mixing the kids together, which is a very,
But I
psychologically
think
very
every
confusing.
orphanage and every institution has their own way
They
of
have
working
their
course,
that
own
but
way.
I'm
policies
talking about the
to
fact
follow.
that
They have their
psychologically-
own policies. So
Yes.
this is what we are doing, and we want to actually
is a
set
good
up
thing.
more.
Right.
Because this is the need of the hour.
And this is the need of the hour, and something very different. Like it's a
Different,
novel kind of a
yes.
concept.
Yes, because
Salma, I would want your narrative on this. We talk about unifying families, something which the bureau is also doing, on which I'll get Sarah's views too. But when we talk about reunification, COVID-19, do you not feel that has taken an impact?
Of course, that has taken a very big impact as well. And I think for that purpose, our government needs to, intervene and put out task forces in which we can find out exactly what's happening with the kids who've lost the breadwinner of the families, so the bache are not, on the streets, are not participating in wrong activities. So they-
Basically, children who've been orphaned because of COVID-19.
COVID-19, yes.
Sarah, is the government doing anything particularly in this regard?
We saw a lot of increase in child beggary during COVID. So we've rescued those children. For example, in the last 1 month only, 382 children were rescued from the streets by Child Protection Bureau, and they're still living in the bureau.
Sarah, in this regard, a very important and pertinent question which arises is the fact that I know that the Bureau is very focused on also reunifying families, connecting children who are lost, children who are kidnapped, children who go missing with their respective families. But it's very important for us to understand from the common man perspective that practically how is this done? Like, do you use media or do you engage with the local councils? Because you need to have information, in order to connect the lost child with their families.
We do give ads in newspapers and stuff, radio, and social media. Of course, we use that also to help find families of missing children, lost children who are with us. Our family tracing section find parents of children who were lost like 8 years ago, 2 years ago, 12 years ago. And it's such an emotional, it's such an emotional scene when I see them meeting the child for the first time after so many years. Sometimes we've also found parents of children who can't speak, who are differently abled, and who are, they can't talk.
This is something which is very heartening and which is very moving. But at the end of the day, how do you do your homework? The question still remains, Sarah, how do you identify that if this person or if this child that you found, they would be, issue of these parents, what is the mechanism of information for you people?
Okay, so as I told you, Fatma, we give ads in the newspapers, on social media, so people contact us. Whoever has a missing child, lost child, they contact us. They contact the bureau. Also, police station. Lots of cases are referred to us by the police station because, of course, couples whose babies are lost or they're missing, they go to the police stations and they report there. So because we have a really good relationship with the Punjab police, so through police also we trace lots of families. Other than that, there are railway stations, and we have open reception centers. And the main reason for these centers, we've opened up 3 centers in Lahore, and other districts also, but I'm just talking about Lahore right now. The main reason was just to help reunify children with their families. And these ORCs are placed at very strategic locations, for example, near police station, near railway station, where we find most of these cases. So our team is over there, and whoever has a missing child goes there and then reports the missing child there. And then we check if they're present in any of our hostels all over Punjab. So these are the different types of ways
These
that
are
we
different
adopt to
avenues,
find
exactly, because
families.
it is such a long process. I was just thinking, Sara, that you need coordination from all angles to be able to do that.
Proper task force to be
Exactly, proper
implemented.
task force. But Sara, one more question, which you very validly pointed out, is that of child beggary. And I do know that you've been leading these grand rescue operations very recently, in which you've been very successful in cracking down on child beggary. So how has that been?
Grand rescue operations, we have rescue operations on a daily basis, because you know there's so many child beggars that we see on streets, and the reasons behind those child beggars being on streets, of course, poverty and other reasons also. There some are also doing it professionally. There are big business networks being operated also, because once we rescue a child, we get, you know, we have seen the court gets around 1,500 to 2,000 rupees per day. That's the earning
Right.
from a child beggar. And imagine what that translates into when you calculate it monthly. So anyway, in the last 1 month, we rescued 382 child beggars from Lahore and 697 child beggars from all over Punjab, 8 districts of Punjab. We're also expanding in other districts. So next time, inshallah, I'll give you a better figure. So the main purpose is to eliminate child beggary. We will continue these operations on a daily basis. Every day, we have 4 shifts, 25 employees, child protection officers who go with the police, Punjab Police and Child Protection Bureau, doing this combined effort. And so 4 shifts go. The last shift goes from 11 p.m. till 1 a.m. also, because we see a lot of child beggars at that time.
What about the, rings which actually make them beg at the first place? What about the parents who force their kids to beg? So I just want to understand through you, that is the Bureau also focused on, catching them, or for that matter, rehabilitation of the beggars?
Last 1 month, we've registered 50 FIRs against parents who have forced their child to become a child beggar, because we have an option. It's called Section 36 of our PDNC Act, which allows us to do that. So we are getting FIRs done. We're getting those parents arrested also. And we found 2 mafias, gangs, who were behind placing children on signals. We got them arrested with the help of the police. Our team was doing recce for a month, and then found out where they used to drop the children and when they would pick the children, and we got them arrested. So we are working on gangs, mafias, and there is a proper law.
Sara, so to conclude today's show, my last question to you would be that we do know that Bureau and you at your end are doing so much work when it comes to basically upholding child rights in Pakistan. But personally, I feel it's very, harsh to put all the responsibility just on the state. We need to act as responsible citizens of Pakistan too. The society also needs to step up. So what would your message be to the society in this regard?
Yeah, Padma, very good question you've put up, and I would like to give this message through your channel. The citizens also need to play their role, which is very important. And for example, child beggary, I want the citizens to discourage child beggary by not giving child beggars any money, because when you give them money, you encourage that business, So rather than giving them money, either get them admitted in the Child Protection Bureau, give them some food, or get them admission in some school, but don't give them money. Secondly, regarding child abuse, parents should not leave their children unattended. 95% of the cases where I've intervened, we've seen that children leave the houses just like that to go to a candy shop, to go to a pawn shop, and then the abuse takes place. So one needs to build up confidence, love in the child, so that the child can share his or her issues with the parent, and also keep, give them love, don't leave them unattended. And as a society, everybody should keep an eye and watch out for any suspicious activity that, is taking place with a child.
Before I conclude today's show, my last question to you would be, we've spoken about child beggary and all that the Bureau is doing, but, something which Sara also highlighted in this regard, that we both feel that it's just not strictly the responsibility of the state. The society also needs to basically step in. So what would your, 2 cents be on this, that how do we need to, as responsible citizens in Pakistan, change our attitude when it comes to child beggary? Because I do feel, Salma, that at our own end, we do, even if we don't want to, we do encourage it.
Because we feel sympathy, and we end up
we
giving in that way. But the larger picture which needs to be kept in mind is the fact that you're encouraging these kids. So it's again what Sara mentioned, is the fact that it becomes a business.
Campaigns.
So
right.
Plus we should have these numbers.
Of this. You are not supposed to do this. You are encouraging beggary.
Plus also, if I can just add
also,
on
madam,
here,
these women who go around, taking drugged babies with them, basically.
Yes, that is the worst thing, Padma.
So many things.
So there should be a number that should be easily accessible accessible for everyone, that everyone should be notified with, that if you
The Bureau
see
does
you
have
said
a
such a
helpline.
good-
so that needs to be highlighted more.
Yes.
I do believe they do have it, but it needs to be highlighted more. So if those conditions, XYZ
Yes.
condition is noticed, please notify the Bureau on these numbers so that they
Right.
can come and collect the child and they can
And the
report the
yes,
mother or
yes.
whatever the instance is. And please stop encouraging kids to beg. Like there are kids who are out there selling different things and all. Just put them in an institute for a schooling or an orphanage, or report them, because you know it's like Sara said, it's
see,
become a business.
they
And we
It's
need to
just
be-
become a
the-
business, and it's also
the
organized
Bureau does-
crime
it's
at
organized
the end
crime.
of the
So
day.
that is what needs to be taken care
They
of.
are taken, they are taken away for some time, and then they reappear. You should see. the
Yes, so
same-
that's exactly
so
what
the
it is.
follow-up
Yes.
mechanism also needs
Needs
to
to
be
be,
strong,
like,
just
installed
the
in
way
a
it
proper
is in
way.
you know
Yes.
many other things which she has earlier mentioned.
Yes.
But in this regard, madam, I think rehabilitation of these child beggars or beggars, so to speak, is also very important.
Exactly.
Because
So that
they
they have
have
something
to
to fall
come and
back
then you
on.
need to rehabilitate
Yes,
them into the
The Bureau
society.
is taking care of that. Those beggars, they.
But
they-
madam,
there's
I
a
think
school-
there's so
it's
many
very
still
unfair that
there.
we throw
Yeah,
all the
we should
responsibility on the
also-
bureau.
yes, we
We
have
at
a
our end
social
also need to
responsibility.
integrate
Yes,
them.
We have a
this is the
responsibility.
duty of every citizen.
Citizen
actually.
out there. Exactly.
Everyone.
So like
What
what
would
we
your
Everyone's
need
proposals
responsible.
be in this regard? I think a very important responsibility rests on the media,
Yes,
mainstream media,
definitely.
which is responsible for making perceptions.
Yes, so that
Yes.
perception needs to be, you know, like it needs to be put into people's mind. That's
Mind.
media is very important because it plays a critical
I
role.
think every channel should give at least 5 minutes of its time
Awareness
for
behind
this
it. It's-
awareness program.
Fatma, it's all about awareness, creating awareness of what's wrong, what should be
If you
done.
keep
and
at
if you're-
it, then people
yes.
will realize
Because
what, their,
people do.
what their
And I
responsibility
think
is.
right now, I think the momentum has started because we do see the media being very active on so many issues,
Yes,
violence
yes,
against
yes.
women,
Yes.
child abuse.
So this is something they need to pick up on as well.
This is
Yes,
something that they
yes,
need
they
to
need to
work
pick
on
up.
as
And
well.
there is a very
Keep on
important-
harping on this, that
Yes.
you are to discourage beggary, you are
It is a very
to report
strong
to the bureau,
underlying
this
issue.
is the number, you should do
Yes.
this. Then of course,
Like I said, their number is out there, but I don't
Yes.
know the number. I
Of
mean,
course, nobody
no one
knows.
knows, and I don't know whether if I call them, will they do anything about
No,
it?
no, of
So-
course they will if they are doing
Of
so many
course, but the thing
crackdowns.
is,
Yeah,
I'm just
but
talking
of
about
course
the fact
awareness
that-
needs to go.
Yes,
And I think
awareness
one
needs to be
purpose of
given,
having
yes.
this show
Is
as
to
well
create
is
awareness,
to
yes.
create awareness and to
yes,
tell people
every
what
channel
all is being
so
done.
that
every
that's like
channel
what she's
actually, every
doing,
TV
yes.
channel should be asked to
Putting the message out there
yes,
strongly. Yes.
strongly.
And
Give
people should
5
know that,
minutes,
you know, I-
every day 5 minutes for this purpose.
I stop the car when I see a child begging and I tell them, where's your mother or father? Why aren't you going to school? Why are you out here? Fatma, there's a kid who sits outside on the roads at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and he's just sitting on the roads. And it breaks your heart and you want to help the child.
he's sleepy,
Obviously, you
you
want to help
know.
the child and he's awake and he's sitting there in the cold, in the heat,
But
whatever.
then again, it's such a complicated problem, Salma, because you just can't see it in its isolation.
Yes,
it
it
stems
needs to
from
be- it's a bigger-
poverty.
it's a bigger-
it's a
yes,
bigger
it's a
issue.
bigger issue
So
which needs to
everybody
be
needs to
addressed.
step
Everybody
up
needs
their
to step
game.
in and
Right.
play the role.
Right, Salma. But before I conclude today's show, madam, what would your concluding comment be? Because since we are talking about rehabilitation, I would want you to give us proposals that how can we practically rehabilitate such children in the society. And it's just not about child beggars. We are talking about children who are destitute, who are abandoned, who are abused, who are victimized in any way whatsoever.
We are taking orphaned and abandoned children both, and we do rehabilitate them. It's not that we are only providing food and shelter, no. I mean, SOS actually is a very beautiful response, appropriate response to the children who are left alone in this world to fend for themselves, honestly. And they build relationships, they have special bonds with the mothers, with their older brothers and sisters. It's such a beautiful system, you can't imagine.
But madam,
And
when I talk about rehabilitation here, I
yes,
would want
like,
your narrative on
we-
vocational training, skill
vocational-
development.
You see, every child doesn't become a DC or a doctor or an engineer. We do emphasize on this now, that after education up to metric is mandatory for every child. We have our own schools with every village. So they do metric. After that, we have 3 vocational institutes of our own. They go there, they become good mechanics, auto mechanics, plumbers, whatever.
They do basically whatever they want to do.
Yes, they're interested in. There are girls
is
who
very
want to go
important,
for
which is-
stitching. Every girl wants to become a beautician.
Yeah,
we
these-
encourage it. We encourage it that they must, so they can be independent, earn
Stand
their
alone in the society.
livelihood respectfully. So we do that.
Not
Every
only,
child is.
I think that's very validly put by yourself, madam, because the show does relate to the society. So I would want to reinforce once
Yes.
again that I think a lot needs to be done on the society's
Yes.
part
Yes.
too. You are
Exactly.
doing what you had to do. Sarah is doing what she
Yes.
had to do, but then the responsibility should be divided, and it is something
Yes.
on
Everyone
which
should take it on
everyone
their
should
own.
And
take
vocational
full
institutes
hands-on,
that we
yes.
have set up 3. It is not only for SOS children.
Hmm.
The outsiders also come and get training from there.
Okay.
And
That's wonderful.
We make sure that they get jobs also. We help them get jobs. We ring up companies that these children should be accommodated, and they are accommodated. So children are.
That's great.
you
So
know,
they get
are
recruited
taking
by
interest
different
And you're
companies
also
as
getting
well.
girls basically married
Oh
off.
yes, yes. Girls, of course, they stay with us till they get married. They may become doctors, engineers, architects, but they stay here. This is our society.
Thank you so much, Salma. Thank you so much, Madam Almas, and thank you so much, Ms. Sarah, for being here with us today.
Thank you, Fatma. Thank you.
Well, to conclude today's show, as has been time and again pointed out during the conversation, something which I would like to reiterate in today's conclusion is the fact that taking care of our children is solely and must not be the responsibility of the state. We do see the Child Welfare Protection Bureau doing commendable work, be it in terms of reunification of families, be it in terms of taking care of orphans, or for that matter, this recent crackdown that they have had in Lahore when it comes to basically curbing this social menace of child beggary. But we at our own end also need to show more responsibility. We also need to make this conscious and positive effort to rehabilitate all such children back into the society. On that note, signing off for today. Until next time, take care and Allah Hafiz.